I believe that we have coming up right now Senator Rand Paul. Do we have Senator Rand Paul? I think we have someone sitting there waiting. So as we wait for Senator Rand Paul here, again, we want to take some of your questions. Do we have a stinger for Rand Paul? No, we don't. Okay.
A senator stinger, like a walk-in song?
Well, I was going to say that we can play the Santa clip, but instead, let me tell you, there's several reasons I want to have Rand Paul on. First off, he is the candidate I agree with most who also aggravates me.
But you love him.
Why? Why is that?
I just feel like he does that with a lot of people. I don't think there's a candidate. I don't think there's any politician out there who I agree with more on issues, if you were to do one of those political compass useless tests, than Rand Paul.
Right.
But I do, and I say that because you can just see other people getting irritated here when he was talking with Assistant Health Secretary Rachel Levine, doctor, and providing actual scientifically accurate medical information. And you can just see the frowns. We have a clip, and then we have Senator Rand Paul.
Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field. And if confirmed,
thanks for informing the practicing doctor.
Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and the complexity of this field.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question. The question is a very specific one. Should minors be making these momentous decisions? For most of the history of medicine, we wouldn't let you have a cut sewn up in the ER. But you're willing to let a minor take things that prevent their puberty, and you think they get that back?
It's a trick question.
I love it.
They don't.
They do not.
I love it.
By the way, talk about reverse logic. This was a video that was banned from YouTube at the LGBTQ town hall where they were teaching people how to transition children and get it funded by the government. And I asked them, I posed as someone who had a transgender child. They said, look, you give them the puberty blockers, and then if they decide that they're not trans, you take them off it, and they probably go back. It's like, oh, hold on a second. How about we do the opposite of that?
We are not.
And how about that doesn't work the right way? He asked the question, they don't just get that back. You put them on these puberty blockers for a reason. And what are they making these decisions at 12, 13, 14 years old? Sometimes even 6. Yeah, I was about to say, sometimes even earlier on in life. They're not capable of making this. And all Rand Paul did was say, I have a legitimate question that parents across the country right now are asking. By the way, it's not just can the kid make the decision. It is at what point does a 7-year-old get tied up with an activist group that then takes the right of their parents away so that the kid can make the decision legally, even if their parents disagree.
That logic would be like, so look, you guys have done fitness videos for a long time. That's how he became really popular, and they're strapping young lads. So it would be like someone coming to you for fitness advice, right? Being like, hey, look, I haven't done anything. What should I do? And you go, look, take trenbolone, and then afterward, if you find it doesn't give you the results you want, you can just go to, lifting weights and eating right.
Right. But, that's between consenting adults,
No,
it's illegal, but it's consenting adults. I don't see what's the rush with a small child. They can't even consent. They are not even at the legal age of consent. How could you let a small child remove his genitalia or female and take puberty blockers? It's just sick. It's just beyond reason.
It is beyond. Think about that. That's one thing that people don't talk about. They are not of the age of consent sexually, but they're making decisions that can forever change their sex life. Imagine this, right? It's part of the wonderment of life. All right.
Leningrad.
We have Senator Rand Paul. We just showed that clip of him with Dr. Rachel Levine. Senator Rand Paul, can you hear me, sir?
Good morning. It sounds kind of crazy. I'm not sure I want to be on.
Smart man.
It is.
I'm not sure I want to be hosting. But I appreciate. I just showed that clip of you with Dr. Rachel Levine. First off, my question to you, Senator Rand Paul, is how did it feel to have someone sitting there at this hearing informing you of the subtle and nuanced details of transgender medicine, of which I'm sure you were not privy?
Yeah, I thought, maybe Dr. Levine was going to say, now, son, you can't understand this, and I'll come and talk to you. Bless your heart. We're just not sure you can understand the nuances of giving little kids hormones that change their sexual appearance. But no, I think that when you look at the actual issue, it's horrifying to think that the people Biden is appointing would actually say that a 10-year-old's opinion would override their parents' consent. So a parent says, no, don't get anywhere near my kid. And the 10-year-old says, oh, I want to go to a gender clinic. And all of these people who have already become activists and zealots for this, many of whom have done the surgery to themselves, are there telling your 10-year-old kid how brave they are and how it's a great thing for their kid to want to do this. And the parents object, and they would take a 10-year-old's word over their parents or 10-year-old's opinion. See, I think that nobody in America believes that. I think maybe less than 1% of America actually think that's a good thing.
Right.
But everybody's afraid of the media because the media will beat the hell out of you and say you're a big hater if you bring it up.
Well, yeah, you were trending on Twitter as transphobic that day. When again, it used to be that you could say, "Look, you want to put on a dress, put on makeup as an adult, do whatever you want to do. That's fine. It doesn't infringe." As a libertarian, more libertarian-minded person, it doesn't infringe on my life. The only issue is when we're talking about women's sports. But it used to be, and by used to, I mean 2 years ago, still a relatively safe position to say, but you can't let kids transition. They say, oh, no, we don't want to let kids transition. The good news is, if she were to call you son, you could demand some testosterone pills, throw her for a loop.
Yeah, because that would be some kind of gender hate crime to refer to me by my gender at all. So, no, I think the thing about it is when you talk about this, they're also lying to you. They're saying, oh, it's all reversible. Well, there's two different things they want to do to your children. First, they want to delay puberty. There is a certain reversibility to that drug. But when they get to be 14, they give a girl massive amounts of testosterone, enough to grow a beard better than your beard, probably.
That's not saying much.
Yeah. But
see what I was saying? I was saying this before. Senator Rand Paul is the person with whom I agree the most and still irritates me.
But here's the thing is, you give a 14-year-old girl that much testosterone that she grows a beard, she doesn't go back to the appearance of a girl. It changes things forever, and a 14-year-old can't make this decision. But they begin grooming these children at 10 because the so-called psychological evaluation is a bunch of people who have changed their sexual appearance through surgery or hormones, telling the child it's okay. Do you think anybody is at the gender dysphoria clinic saying, well, you might be careful, this could be permanent and maybe you'll change your mind?
Right.
The American College of Pediatrics has looked at this, and 85 to 90% of these children who are confused work it out and end up not doing this if you leave them alone, don't give them medicine, and don't affirm and coach them into believing that it's a good idea. Left to their own sort of desires, most kids will kind of grow out of this. There's a large association.
It's actually over 90%. It's up to 98 depending where I think the source you use was 90, but it depends on the age, where you do the cutoff. It's up to 96 or 98%. Now, people don't know this. The number of children who transition, if you put them on hormone blockers, is 0. So there's a direct correlation right there between intervention, which we know in any other scenario obviously would be considered medically risky, and the outcome of the child.
Yeah. And but this is a bigger debate, even just beyond the specific issue of whether or not children should override their parents' wishes at such a young age, and to do something that I think is potentially irreversible. And I think it's really just a crime and should be considered to be child abuse. And yet this is being mainstreamed, and these people will be in charge of $1 trillion budget at HHS.
Right.
So, and a lot of that budget will go towards government care of children. So will this Dr. Levine be able to get her radical views into the minds of children? Well, when you have $1 trillion budget, I'm sure this doctor will find a way.
Yeah, but with HHS, $1 trillion is like a take a penny, leave a penny jar. One of my co-hosts here, Gerald, has a question, I believe, and then we're going to have to go to YouTube only because they don't like this.
Yes, Senator, I had a question. We have
Mug Club only.
The Mug Club, yes. We have the party of science, right, on the other side saying you have to always follow the science, Well, how can we when they keep changing what science is? I think, isn't that the point you're bringing up? Like, you guys are not following the science?
Especially as a doctor, yeah.
Well, actually, and nowhere is this more apparent than all the COVID. There's been a million different opinions by Dr. Fauci. He's been on both sides of every issue. But the one thing consistent about Dr. Fauci is that when he lies to you, he's lying for your own good because you're not smart enough. You're not smart enough to make decisions. You might choose not to be vaccinated if he tells you that herd immunity takes 90%. So he's been telling you 70% because he wants to convince you to take a vaccine. Likewise, on the masks, the reason he has admitted that he lied I don't know what the lie was because masks probably don't help at all anyway. But he says, oh, the mask will help. The mask will help. But he didn't want you to buy the N95s because the N95s are the only mask that actually probably works to a certain degree. That's the one the doctors use, and he was afraid that the public would buy them and there wouldn't be enough. So he lied or, misspoke or told you what he thought you were capable of hearing at your low intellectual level. And this is a problem. This is, Fauci is the paragon of elitism, and that he knows better than the rest of us. But in a free society, it's the opposite. Every individual assesses their own risk, whether you're going to cross the road, whether you're going to wait for a green light, whether you're going to get in a car, whether you're going to get on a motorcycle, whether you wear a helmet, whether you take a vaccine, whether you get the disease. Those are individual decisions in a free society, and we can't forget that.
And before we go to Mug Club Only here really quickly, didn't he mock you on the mere concept of herd immunity, or am I misremembering that?
At every point that he disagreed with me, he turned out to be wrong when you examine the evidence.
Wow.
And that's a surprise. That's a shocker. But I'll give you probably the worst one, and this one hasn't been publicized. In our first meeting in March of last year, as the disease was just starting to go through that first peak, I raised my hand and said, Dr. Fauci, don't you think in some of these very sick individuals that high-dose steroids might work? We've used it in other conditions like this where the lungs fill with fluid as a last gasp sort of thing. And he says, oh, no, we've tried that. That doesn't work. Well, it turns out the most important thing you get if you have to be put on a ventilator is IV steroids at a high dose to try to save your life, and it has actually brought down the mortality by 80% using IV steroids. So he's wrong on everything. He's wrong on immunity.
Wow.
He said, oh, kids could get sick and they might have Kawasaki's disease. Turns out the death rate among those under age 25 is 1 in a million. It's less than the seasonal flu. Now, it's more dangerous than the flu for older people, but for younger people, this is actually less dangerous than the seasonal flu.
So for young people, 1 in a million? You're saying there's a chance. All right, we're going to go really quickly to Mug Club Only. Everyone watching here, send your questions for Senator Rand Paul, Dr. Rand Paul. YouTube, thank you, but we don't know where this is going, so you can, I'll be polite. You know what to do, YouTube.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.